Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike and Charles. Charles and Mike, but Mike is on assignment. Mike had so much fun at homecoming. I'm thinking he's still trying to find wellness in terms of that. But it may be something else. Maybe he's actually busy, but I thought I would tell on him just a bit. But we had a great time down there at Prairie View A&M University, like a lot of HBCU alumni, fans, and students have at their particular homecoming. With that being said, it was homecoming throughout the MEAC with three of the teams hosting the other three teams. First week, three of them had homecomings. All homecoming teams won too as well. But that's a little bit, we'll get into the mid-major. With that being said, welcome to episode 573 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. Short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, and the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Without further ado, let me welcome in the co-host, the guests of the show. We have the professors on duty. My partner in crime, Charles Bishop. I won't tell only too hard. Also, we have A.D. Drew, as he's driving the truck and always finding a way to bat cleanup. And I say that on purpose with the World Series taking place and what just happened in some of those games. I thought that was and with that, let me introduce Mr. Since he's still trying to figure out if I know who the hell he is. Milton Jackson the second. How you doing?
I am doing good, Dr. Cavil. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. It's my understanding that you're seeking to adjust your payroll because you're thinking about joining us twice this week. So you're trying to double dip and make sure you get in the pockets a little more than usual.
Yeah, just a little bit. Not too much.
I understand. We welcome it. We welcome it. You are a part of the team officially now. We've recruited you fresh out of all the money that you're costing us, but it's actually pretty good. You actually do well. The dividends are playing off, I must say that. With that being said, welcome to all of y'all. Welcome to all the lab listeners out there enjoying the show, popping off and getting ready. We're getting to that point. We did our mid-grade analysis. We're starting to see maybe in some areas what we think teams are. In other areas, we're still trying to figure out. But shout out to all those lab listeners out there. In today's episode of Inside the HBC Sports Lab is sponsored by THD Agency. THD Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting analytics. With that being said, Charles, let me jump right to you and let you jump off where you want to start with the SWAC comments this week.
Let's actually start right there. Southwestern Athletic Conference has publicly reprimanded and levied a fine of $5,000 to Grambling State's head football coach Mickey Joseph for his comments related to officiating. The comments were made during the weekly head coach's media session on Monday following Grambling's football contest with Texas Southern. Joseph's comments were made in violation of Section 2, Article 12, Item 1 calls for imposition of a penalty of the SWAC Constitution, bylaws, and sports regulations. So future violations of the conference code of ethics will result in additional penalties for Joseph, including an increased fine amount along with a 1-game suspension. So that, of course, made the news yesterday. I was listening in to that call, and my eyebrow immediately went up. Like, uh-oh.
Coach, you can't do that anywhere, any level anymore. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're going to get you. The fine, you probably say, hey, you pay that institution, you kind of look twice. That 1-game suspension will probably get your attention. No matter what's going on.
And it's kind of interesting, Doc. You know, I mean, you take a look at it. I mean, you have to have that super fandom thing going if you still think referees have it out for you or whatever the case might be. So it's kind of like,
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously you have some referees make a bad call here and there, but nobody is personally having reason. First of all, I try to tell a lot of folks, it's like coaches. People like coaches not playing the best player or whatever. I think y'all forget what these gentlemen are being played. Even the women, when you talk about on their side of the sports, referees as well. Nobody in their right mind, very rarely, you know, we had the NBA thing, and it's usually at that high level. You had obviously the baseball scandal that goes so far back that we can't even remember the date. We just know it was in the early 1800s, whatever, early 1900s, I guess was in terms of White Sox scandal, as we all know. But the money's so big that it's not realistic that folks are not going to do their best. Many of these folks don't have another option where they can make that same kind of money. Let's put that in. You're not just going to give away your options to make significant money unless you really have a serious problem. So people are not just like putting in there. So you're right. It's funny when you hear, you know, I might say there's some bad refereeing and stuff like that, but it's not just adjudicated. Usually when you look at this on both sides, there might be some calls that are more crucial than others. I'm not saying that, but it's not like just purpose.
And I've had the opportunity to kind of sit through the level of review. I mean, they literally go through their own position Zoom calls through the week. There's an overall, you know, call where they're taking a look at what was they're being evaluated essentially game to game. There are multiple meetings through the course of the week. There's a huge sort of retreat, if you will, for officials here in Houston. In fact, the director of SWAC football officiating, Eddie Kelly, has a huge camp here in Houston where they do review film work and position drills out there on the football field. So, you know, these guys are vetted and they do quite a lot during the course of the week. So.
We got 80 Drew like he in class for real. He got his hands up.
No, what I really have to say is I've officiated. I've officiated at the high school level. I've officiated at the collegiate level.
That's right.
Referees are not out to get coaches. And you talk about bad ref laws. I really need to explain something to people and help them understand something. There are two types of calls that an official makes, no matter what sport it is. One is a rule application. The other one is a judgment call.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Referees 100% of the time are expected to get the rules right. Judgment is exactly what that is, a judgment call. Now, I'm going to give you an example, and I was talking to Coach Norman earlier today. We were talking about this. Pass interference. We all know that a pass interference, defensive pass interference is a 15-yard penalty, except inside the 30, or it becomes half the distance, unless it occurs in the end zone, and then you spot the ball on the 2-yard line. A lot of people may not have known that that's basically how that rule reads. Okay, that's the rule. That is the rule. So that referee is expected to spot the ball at the appropriate point based upon the penalty. whether a pass interference is called or not is the judgment portion of that rule. That is 100% up to that referee, his vantage point, his viewpoint of the play, and when the contact may have or may not have occurred, and was any advantage get gained by either party. That's the judgment part of it. You can't argue the judgment part. What I can argue, that ball is supposed to be spotted at the 12-yard line. You just spotted the ball at the 8. That's what you can argue all day long because you just misapplied the rule. But the fact whether that was a pass interference or not, that's 100% judgment. You may not like it. And if that referee can come over to that head coach and sell his call or give further justification on what he saw, coaches are supposed to be happy because you also forgot our coach. So I understand both sides of this coin. And I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but when a coach goes off like that publicly on the officials, what do you think is going to be the outcome of that? That questionable call from now on, every official know he just got called out. They just got called out. That questionable call from now on may not go in your favor. So, coaches, beware. Be careful when you do that. That's why they give you the 20-minute cooling off period. Well, hell, Coach Joseph didn't use that 20-minute cooling off period or a 24-hour cooling off period in this case.
36. Let me let Wilton Jack.
I'm sorry, Doc.
No, I thought your explanation was really good, but I want to get Wilton in here. His thoughts on this comment before we get prepared.
No, mine kind of echoes what AD Drew said. Like, you can't make if the call is the call, you can't really argue. Obviously, we see coaches do it all the time. But to your point, AD, when you said, like, if the ball is on the 12, if the ball is supposed to be on the 8 and it's on the 12, then yeah, I can argue that. I can say, hey, where are my extra 4 yards? I need the ball. If I got my players down there, or my players got the ball to that particular yard line, this is where it needs to be. But if it's a pass interference and it's a blatant pass interference and I'm just arguing about it, it's not going to – I mean, in the moment, I'm thinking, like, I'm trying to fight for my players. But later on, once I calm down some, which, like you to your point when you said he didn't have that 20-minute grace period, it's like, man, I might have kind of put myself in a far worse situation long term.
Good points. The other thing is I got 2 cheat codes. I get to ask Charles, AD Drew in terms of actually doing it, and then he has colleagues he can reach out to. Charles reaches out to his colleagues, and there's certain things, and I think I know some, and these rules change so fast and so furious, and you're watching it, particularly those that watch both NFL and college, which have some difference in the rules. It's amazing how many times I come back and be like, well, this is the rule. I'll be like, damn, yeah, it changed. Now updated, so now I can go tell somebody else. But it's amazing. Even when I think I'm just like, I know this and this and that, it comes back and be like, no, it changed last year, it changed a year ago. Or I misinterpreted the way I thought the rule was until I get clarification. So even in that case, I've had to admit to myself, I'm like, they got it right. Got it right. More, especially more than not. Let's take our first break. We'll come back on the other side, get into the poll rankings, and then we'll come back and do some accolades from the SWAC and Football Weekly Honors. We still want to get that out there. We'll do that after we release the poll rankings in this second segment. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Lavert Experience and Sunshine Anderson. Immerse yourself in interactive art, take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app that brings Eatonville's legacy to life from your phone. Enjoy family-friendly STEM activities and explore over 80 unique vendors. Please don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets or to become a vendor. We'll see you in Eatonville, the oldest Black incorporated municipality in the country.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir,
Yes,
and
sir.
pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're into our second segment, and it's time to talk about those rankings. It's week number 8 at the mid-major level. You know, that's D2, NIA programs, and we have an update. As I told you, as we get into the season, you get your solidification of your teams in the top 7. And to some degree, even, you know, around that top 8 or so, you have those teams that kind of stay where they are for the most part. And fascinating in terms of how that works out. You may have some teams that drop in and out of that 6, 7 spot, but most teams are pretty slotted there. And you really start to see the cream rise to the crop in terms of who's number 1, 2, or 3. Every once in a while, you get your major upsets, but you get your rankings of 1, 2, and they start to last for several periods of times. Well, we'll see what that looks like today. I can give you a little early headshot in the fact that we had one team that dropped out, but let's get right into it and talk about that team that dropped out this week. West Virginia State Yellow Jackets sit at 5-4-2. They fell out. I know you all were not all that excited about West Virginia State, and you said it was going to happen.
Well, know that cheese.
Yep, looks like you all know a little bit about your football, and they have dropped out, particularly after a big, huge defeat last weekend. That's 2 straight losses for them that drops them out of the poll. So those receiving votes, let's get into that. Not changes here, a little bit in the point numbers here, but everybody is still sitting right here. Virginia State Trojans sit at 5-3, 4-1, 114 points. Florida Memorial sit at 4-2-1, 3-1, as they won their second consecutive game, and Trojans are rolling as well. But the Florida Memorial Lions sit at 112 points. Fort Valley State, the Wildcats are at 5-1, 111, just outside of that. They're quietly getting things done, maybe setting it up for a big matchup against Albany State. And because I mentioned Albany State, which is a couple of games away, I'll tell you Albany State is actually at 11. They're sitting right outside of that as well. With that being said, let's get in the top 7. Kudos to A.D. Drew. He said that Tuskegee Golden Tigers would be creeping towards that ranking. He also said about the SIAC matchups would be coming around late in the season as the CIAA would beat each other up, and some teams with attrition would have to fall out at some point. Well, guess what? The Golden Tigers, I'm going to say A.D. Drew's Golden Tigers are in the mix. They 5-1, 122 points. And I know you work at the other school, so I'm going to save you and just say he's also has Maroon Tigers as well. I got you. Number 6, Clark Atlanta Panthers sit at 5-2 and 4-2, 135 points, 7 points. I know I'm going to ask you to talk about the poll rankings, but a little early cheat code as we get later in the show. We'll talk about this matchup because it is a top 7 matchup between Clark Atlanta Panthers and Tuskegee Golden Tigers as the SIAC finds a way to be up in a top 7 matchup as you got later in the season. So at number 6, you got the Clark Atlanta Panthers sitting at 5-2-1, 4-2. Let's get into number 5. At number 5, we have the Langston Lions. Langston Lions sit at 5-2, 4-1, 139 points. They move up as they continue to win. This is a team started off with 2 losses, and everybody was, particularly when you got in that conference loss, you was like, what happened to Langston? Well, guess what? Langston is starting to do what we're used to Langston doing, playing some pretty good football. Yeah, they had a little down last year, but they had like 5-6 consecutive years where they were highly ranked all up in the top 7. Well, they're back in the mix. It looks like Lions are back in the football business as well. Getting these top 4, still a couple of changes here slightly. Winston-Salem State Rams with that tough loss, they fall to 6-3, 4-2, but they started in that top 5. In fact, they only fall 1 spot from the 3 spot. Bringing us to number 3, Miles Golden Bears. They quietly keep marching, 6-2 and 6-0. 1 first place votes, 163 points. Number 4, if you want to look out long range, and we talked a little bit about that rivalry game between Fort Valley State Wildcats and Albany State, the Golden Rams, well, you have that one likely too. Miles Golden Bears and Tuskegee, and it could be a lot on the line for that matchup for both of these teams. But first things are first. Let's look at the Clark Atlanta and Tuskegee matchup. But I did want you to know that Miles Golden Bears, they sit at number 2, Virginia Union Panthers. They've righted the ship and they're marching down 6-2, 5-up as they just march down the pole. They are consistent now. They're at number 2 with 1 first place vote. I won't even say the surprise. This team is just as good as they want to be. Johnson Smith Golden Bulls 8-0, 5-0, and they just get it done. Huge win over the Winston-Salem State Rams from just the standpoint, not just in terms of staying top of the rankings, not just staying undefeated in HBCU football, not just staying 5-0 in terms of undefeated in the conference race, is the fact that they beat Winston-Salem State before I was a little thought of my daddy's pants. So they got it done, scratched off that mark, if you would. 7 first place votes, 198 points, and they remain number 1, and that is for the 8 straight weeks in a row. 8 straight weeks in a row. They're 8 straight weeks at number 1, as you can see. Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. Charles, let me just go to you directly. What are your thoughts in terms of mid-major poll rankings in week number 8?
I think Tuskegee has a lot of momentum. What stands out to me is who's the better 5-3 team. And I know the poll is week to week, but who's the better 5-3 team, Tuskegee or Fort Valley? Especially when you take a look at a common opponent. Tuskegee lost to Savannah State early in the season, and Fort Valley shut Savannah State out. So it makes me wonder who's the better 5-3 team, especially when you take a look at Tuskegee over their last 4 games. I think the total wins of their opponent is like 9 wins versus 33 losses. So that's probably my only something where I'm a little bothered down at the bottom of the poll. But I think when you take a look at 1 through the first 4 teams, they're about right. And then, I can go with the first 6. I just had a question about them myself.
Yeah, I think you could have picked up a couple of teams. Virginia State Trojans can make an argument. I think you even make it for Florida Memorial Lions, and might be another team out there. As you get in there, I won't beat you up too bad. I think that's a fair analysis in terms of what it looks like. And there, obviously, it sets up nice that Tuskegee did find in the top 7. Now you got a 6-7 matchup from that perspective. But I do agree that you could make an argument. Albany State, Fort Valley State, Florida Memorial, Virginia State Trojans, you start hitting your bet in terms of going back a little bit and seeing when teams lost and how they lost, which is always hard if both teams are winning consistently at the same point. Well, how do you jump over a team over a period of time if you had a tough loss? And you just set up and see if we get those matchups at the end of the year, see what they're like. With that being said, let me see what Wilton has to say about the top 2.
So the first 4 teams, I'm cool. I'm good with. I think that they have pretty much solidified their spots up until this point. As Charles, like he said, the polls change week to week, but they've been the most consistent teams. The one thing I will say is that I kind of had a question of, like, to Charles' point too, who's the better 5-3 team? Because I thought Fort Valley could have actually been in this top 7, in my opinion. You can make a case for Virginia State. I know I did. But I know, again, a lot of these teams are about to continue to beat up on each other, and specifically, Dr. Cavil, that matchup when you talk about Albany State coming up in a couple of weeks, I think that's going to play a big part in kind of deciding some things as the season kind of comes to an end. Clark Atlanta actually wasn't in my top 7. I had them on the outside. I had them at 8. And then Tuskegee was actually on the outside, so I had them at 9. So, but other than that, like, I'm not mad about it. I think this is pretty standard.
Yeah, and I think as you see, as we said, we're talking about the 10. Everybody fine with top 4 or 5. They're just like, hell, we there. It's the bottom 5 that you get a little.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating when you see that, because, like you said, I think you can make an argument to your point that Clark Atlanta shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they lost the game, a tough one, top 7 team. And sometimes I think we forget not just about wins, but who has quality losses.
Exactly.
And we forget about those early quality losses, which is normal. We see this in all the poll rankings in all the years, particularly when it was just about the bowl thing. But think about this. Who had a better loss? Tuskegee Golden Tigers. Now that we see Johnson C. Smith versus Fort Valley State, and they lost to Clark Atlanta. A better loss, particularly when we see what the CIAA did against the SIAC. So I think you got to think a little bit about that as well when you put all these variables in place. See, y'all forget to look at all those variables. I look at all of the variables. That's why they all need a team. But with that being said, before I shoot off my top a little too much, I'm going to let AD Drew get in here and give his thoughts.
The variable you did not mention, Dr. Cavil, was bad. Who of those losses, who actually has the bad loss that sticks
That's
out?
a good one too. Yeah.
You know, Tuskegee has a bad loss.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Atlanta has a bad loss. That's just two of them off the top of your head. Miles actually has a bad loss to a Division II opponent outside of the conference. So, you know, just some of those things, you know, Virginia Union, quality losses. One to Johnson C, one to Division I. So I understand where you're going. That same thing with Winston-Salem State. They have a quality loss in there because of the A&T loss. But
True.
obviously we know six and seven. Somebody stays, somebody goes after Saturday.
Yeah.
No brainer right there. That's overstated obvious. I actually am looking for Langston to slide on up out of here, Dr. Cavil, because the back half of Langston's schedule is a monster.
Yeah, it is.
They've got some of the top teams in NAIA in that Sooner Athletic Conference. The team that gets no respect is Florida Memorial right now. Florida Memorial is in one of the tougher conferences also, but I think what a lot of us put Langston in based on the name recognition because Langston has that history, that recent history of winning.
I agree.
Versus Florida Memorial, who came out of nowhere last year, surprised the heck out of everybody. And Coach Bobby Rome is down there showing that this is not a one-trick pony as he's having success again. But I argue Virginia State and or Fort Valley State should be in here. If I had, and obviously we know the rules of the game, Dr. Cavil. If you put one in, you have to take one out.
Talk to me.
Now, I am honestly, I love my NAIAs, but I have to pull Langston out because the Langston has beaten the teams they're supposed to have beaten. They don't have anything that really, and be understanding and knowing the NAIA, they really don't have a quality victory. They just beat the team what they're supposed to beat.
I agree. That's true.
So now the question for me is which one of those teams would I put in? Would I put in Fort Valley? Would I put in Virginia State? I'm not going to answer that, but that's going to be a little bit of a longer debate. But I tell you, one of those two should be in ahead of Langston.
CIAA is a stronger conference this year, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Charles, you can say that. Drew can't say that.
I mean, you said it, not me, Charles. So that's the one that I would put in, and I would actually probably slide that team into Langston's slot at the 5.
Man, hey, I think you all did your best analysis I've seen you all done over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm serious. If I was reading the dissertation, I'd be like, bucking it up. Let's go. He's done. Or if you did a major research paper, I was like, yeah, this is A+. I haven't seen anything else. We got to publish this. This is good. This is good work. Great analysis. I will add, though, to your point, Drew, I'm interested in the Florida Memorial Lions in the schedule in terms of their toughness as you talk about that conference. They have a chance to do it. But I think now that tie between Clark Atlanta and Florida Memorial is actually hurting both teams. If one of those teams could have finished the game and got the win, imagine what we'd be talking about. Now you're talking
I think it hurts Clark Atlanta more than it hurts Florida Memorial.
Yeah, I'm saying on both sides. But even that, if you're talking about Florida Memorial, you're hedging your bets. You're looking at a 5-2 Florida Memorial team versus just 4-2, and they look sharper against those other 5-3 teams they're with. Or if you had Clark Atlanta sitting at 6-2, so that not getting to be able to play that out is starting to hurt some teams in terms of that. Somebody wants
6. I'm not hating on the F9 SIAC teams. 0-6 against the CIAA though.
Yeah, I think you get your points there. And people have forgot the history that Langston and Lincoln, Missouri actually got approved for the SIAC. Then there was a change in presidents, and they pulled out before they actually started a major conference competition. They played a couple of games. With that being said, let's get into our next break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll let Charles talk about the superlatives for the SWAC, and then we'll let ADU talk about the superlatives for the MEAC. And we'll start getting in some discussion of some of these matchups, and we'll even let Wilton decide what news he wants to drop for the day. Make sure everybody gets a chance to do that as we back that up to the second part. Let's get in our second break, and we'll come back on the other side and get to it.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Break. I'm coming back with the professors, particularly after that segment. Oh my goodness, man, what a breakdown and great dialogue in terms of Dr. Cavil's mid-major division top 7. In terms of it's going to be interesting going down the stretch. Who can find a way to close out and end the season in such a way that they can brag and say, hey, we closed out the season either with a championship or certainly we're in the mix in terms of being top 7. With that being said, Charles, give us some superlatives on the SWAC or MEAC, whichever one you want.
Yeah, let's take a look at the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Has Tab, Florida A&M's Jamari Cassette, Texas Southern's Javius Williams, Alabama State's Amon Scarborough, and Jackson State's Gerardo Baeza, and Prairie View's James Burns for SWAC Football Weekly Honors for their outstanding performances. Let's take a look at the Offensive Player of the Week, Jamari Cassette, another dominant performance, 5 receptions, 118 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He also had 2 punt returns for 40 yards and a punt return touchdown. The co-defensive players of the week, Javius Williams from Texas Southern, and he led the Tigers with 9 tackles and 3 tackles for a loss, and Texas Southern held Grambling to 256 yards of total offense. Amon Scarborough from Alabama State, he recorded 8 tackles, including 6 solo stops and 1 tackle for a loss. His interception in the Alabama A&M's final drive and sealed the Hornets' 27-19 win at the Magic City Classic. Specialist of the week was Gerardo Baeza, G-Baby, as he is known in Jackson. Had a perfect day kicking the ball in Jackson State's 37-17 victory over Bethune-Cookman. He connected on all 3 of his field goals. He converted kicks of 24, 39, and 28 yards, and also connected on all 4 of his extra point attempts. And the newcomer of the week was James Burns from Prairie View. He led all Prairie View A&M rushers with 76 yards and 1 touchdown. During the Panthers' win over Texas A&M Commerce, he also added 139 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, and those are your SWAC players of the week.
Good stuff, good stuff. AD Drew, give us some updates on the MEAC players of the week.
South Carolina State quarterback Eric Phoenix was named MEAC Athletic Conference. Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference Offensive Player of the Week presented by Coca-Cola. South Carolina State defensive lineman Jaden Broughton earned Defensive Player of the Week. What conference have I heard those 2 names in before? Flashbacks, man. Delaware State, Mikhail Davis and Justice Johnson were named the rookie and offensive lineman of the week, respectively. Norfolk State. Jalen White earned specialist of the week. Let's go inside the numbers. Phoenix completed 85.7%. I just saw this number for the first time. Wow. Passes for 341 yards and 4 tutties in the 69-35 win over Delaware State. We know it's basketball season, and South Carolina State had to prove it. All 4 times for 30 yards and one touchdown also. Broughton had 6 solo tackles. All his tackles were solo in South Carolina State's victory over Delaware State. He added 5 tackles. 5 of those were tackles for a loss of 17 yards with, count them, 4 of those tackles for a loss, counting as sacks. Wow. Broughton added 2 forced fumbles to the top of a strong defensive performance. And looking at the notes, says he also had a partridge and a pear tree. All right, keep going. Davis registered 60 yards on 7 of 18 passes, including 15-yard touchdown pass, and the Hornets lost to South Carolina State. He got 8 carries for 19 yards. That's an offensive tackle. Recorded a blocking grade of 90% with 3 pancakes, as the Hornets accumulated 322 yards of total offense. Excuse me, y'all. And White ran back a 97-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, shifting momentum in the Spartans' 21-20 victory over Howard. And those, ladies and gentlemen, and lab rats, are your MEAC performers of the week.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Shout out to the MEAC SWAC players of the week. I want to add one. Finally, see, they got somebody some recognition from our independent HBCUs. Hampton, big win this past weekend. And CIAA football rookie of the week was Michael Matthews Canty, freshman linebacker, Hampton from Fredericksburg, Virginia. St. Michael's the Archangel was in the building. Making just his second start at linebacker, Matthews Canty tallied 5 tackles as part of a dominant defensive effort in Hampton's 41-21 win over Elon. The freshman more than doubled his season total of tackles to help the Pirates hold the Phoenix to 6 first downs, minus 28 yards rushing and 160 total yards. I should say only 160 total yards. Wilton, what direction you want to go with some news of the day?
So I'm going to go into the Spartans, Norfolk State. They got a win against Howard this weekend. They were named the HBCU Plus FCS National Team of the Week for MEACSports.com. Norfolk State. The Spartans got back in the win column in emphatic fashion on Saturday, taking down defending MEAC champion Howard 21-20 in front of a sold-out crowd at William Dick Price Stadium. After trailing by as much as 10 in the first half, Norfolk State rallied from behind to pull out the homecoming victory. Kevon King scored the go-ahead touchdown in the 4th quarter before the NSU defense closed things out from there. Redshirt junior Jalen White, who on Saturday became the first Norfolk State player since Marcus Taylor in 2017 to return a kickoff for a touchdown, also received an honorable mention nod in the Special Teams Player of the Week category. Norfolk State returns to the field on Saturday at 1 p.m., traveling to Baltimore to face Morgan State at Hughes Stadium.
Good stuff. Good notes, man. And these folks talking about whether coach was BS and who's going to get let go. Be interesting.
Hi, Lennon.
Coaches still fighting and saying that they're going to end the season at 8-3. But we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. I do want to give a shout out before we take this last break and get into some matchups. We'll go mid-major and some major ones that you want to talk about. But Alabama State and Alabama A&M in the Magic City Classic, 69,125. And remember, folks, this was not just the marketing of the marketing group. This is when you had Alabama A&M, Alabama State, when they decided to make their own move, at least Alabama A&M, they were going to do their own marketing. A lot of folks were excited about it. Some folks were a little concerned of what that may look like. But this is huge, coming off all that, to be able to, in that first year, if you would, coming back in the mix, 69,125. Kudos to them. As you talked about, Norfolk State, Howard, kudos for homecoming, 31,876. Norfolk State. Some significant crowds there. I just wanted to point out some of the games that were in the mix. They had a couple of 20,000 22,000. South Carolina State, Delaware State, FAMU Southern, 16,487. A little disappointed with that. Prairie View, Texas A&M Commerce, 13,937. Morgan State, 13,000. Arkansas, Mississippi Valley grew 12,000. Jackson State, Bethune-Cookman, 11,000 there. Fort Valley State, Morehouse had 11,000 in that mix. And Texas Southern Grambling State had 10,000 as well. With that being said, exactly, Charles, what do you want to jump in the mix?
Just makes me wonder what the Bayou Classic crowd is going to look like this year. There's a benchmark. There's 69,000. Just curious.
You know the big difference, though, Charles. While the Bayou may get more people inside the Mercedes-Benz, it's not more. It's Caesars now, right? Caesars has it.
Caesars Superdome.
Yeah. I guarantee you there will be always be more people outside of Legion Field than outside. I guarantee you there were 100,000 people in the area. Only 70,000 of them decided to go into a stadium. There was another 30,000 outside.
Good points. Let's talk about a couple of these mid-major matchups. Jump back on that a little bit. Let's look at this first one. Kind of hinted at this when we did the mid-major poll rankings. Number 7, Tuskegee Golden Tigers sit at 5-3, 5-1. At number 6, Clark Atlanta Panthers sit at 5-2, 1 and 4-2 in conference play. Obviously, a lot at stake, particularly for Golden Tigers. They sit at just 5-1. They're on their chance to make the championship game. A lot of people questioned to some degree when we talked about the rankings, the toughness of their schedule. They played who was in front of them, but they got a chance to make a statement. But you have that on the other side. Clark Atlanta Panthers had a startling start of the season. They have a chance to make a pretty solid statement, close things out, specifically make sure they have a winning season. I think that's on the line for both these teams, even though Golden Tigers, we said, probably have more that they want to get accomplished. But all things being considered, Clark Atlanta gets to a winning season, keeps themselves to some degree just outside of the race a little bit. I think that's a major matchup for both teams in various ways. The importance of trying to get this done. This is in Atlanta. So another chance to play on the red carpet there. Fascinating, and I want to hear what your thoughts on this. Wilton, what direction are you going in terms of this matchup?
I'm looking to see if Clark Atlanta is going to continue to maintain their momentum. I think those first couple of weeks of the season, I'm one included, definitely riding high on them. Still hadn't necessarily changed that, but this is another really big test. When you look at, Clark Atlanta's schedule, obviously after that big win against Bethune-Cookman, I think that's when we really kind of started to give them a little bit more, I don't necessarily want to say clout, but I guess a little bit more seriousness to what they were going to become as a program. And getting a Tuskegee team that's really hot. Like you talk about teams that, they always say, you may not always start the season the way you want it, but if you get hot at the right time, it changes everything. They're going to get a strong test from Tuskegee in this game. Good thing for Clark Atlanta, I think that them playing at home, I think they'll potentially get this win. And I'm sticking with Clark Atlanta.
Good one. Charles, what do you say?
Very interesting contest. Like I said, I think Tuskegee has quite a bit of momentum, but we talked about it. Their past 5 opponents, their combined record 9-33. But Tuskegee is the number 1 scoring defense in the SIAC, but they have not seen an offense like Clark. I think you look behind those numbers a little bit. Tuskegee really doesn't get to the quarterback. I think they only have 16 sacks on the season, and I think that's one of the things that you have to do. You have to get to David Wright. So for that reason alone, I'm going to go with Clark in this game because I think Clark has the ability to outscore Tuskegee.
Eddie Drew, I want to get your thoughts on the matchup. Obviously, I know you can't talk about the score because of the position and your connection to multiple teams in a lot of ways. But what are your thoughts in terms of this matchup?
Let's go back in the preseason. I said Tuskegee had the easiest schedule out of every team in the SIAC. Now, no one factored in the Savannah State loss into that schedule, but even with it, if there was one team that I knew could realistically rebound and stay in contention just based on their schedule, I knew it was Tuskegee. Let's think about this. A Tuskegee win sets up real drama next week
Right.
in the IAC.
Right.
Because not only when Tuskegee and Miles play each other next week, obviously a Miles win gives them the conference championship. And a Tuskegee loss to Miles would knock them out, assuming both Fort Valley and Albany win this week. Because that means that the winner next week would only have one loss. But that's too easy, y'all. Let's have some fun. Tuskegee beats Clark.
Here comes Chaos Guy.
Yeah.
Tuskegee beats Miles. Both teams 7-1 in conference. Albany State, Fort Valley win this week. One of them's going to knock the other one off next week. 7-1 in conference.
So
all three teams have
basically we can get chaos.
All three teams have not played each other. Now, somewhere in there, it with all those one losses is the strength of loss, as I call it. Unfortunately, if we get down to that tiebreaker, Tuskegee is out because of the loss to Savannah State. Because of where Savannah State's going to finish at in the ranking.
Great breakdown, because I was just going to say in your analysis with Savannah State being 4-4 and 3-3, is that loss that bad? But when you put all the contexts around it, now it's easy to see how that's a tough loss.
Right. I'm trying to remember who did Albany lose to? Albany lost to, no, let me back that up. Albany lost to Kentucky. Didn't Albany lose to Kentucky State?
Let me see. They lost to they lost to Miles.
Okay, that's a quality loss.
Yeah.
So who did
they lost to Miles, they lost to Shaw, and they lost to Valdosta State.
I'm talking about conference. So Fort Valley lost to who? Because somebody see what Fort Valley lost to?
Yeah, Fort Valley lost to they lost at Delta State. Oh, they lost to Clark to start the season off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think based on how everybody's going to finish, the Savannah State is going to lose right now. It's going
right, because they're if you go proceeding to your loss in terms of where they rank at the finish, they would be ranked lower than the other two teams that lost.
Unless Morehouse could pull off the upset and beat Clark Atlanta next week. And then you may have
then they slide down.
Then Clark Atlanta slides down.
I hope that don't happen.
It's like no Clark is not Morehouse. You know, last couple matchups. I'll let y'all pick and see if anything stands out in these matchups before we take a last break and come back and look at the major division. We got Benedict Tigers at essentially number 10 Fort Valley State Wildcats. We have number 8 Virginia State Trojans at Lincoln, Pennsylvania. We have Fayetteville State, the Broncos, at number 1 Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. We have Bluefield, Big Blue at number 2 Virginia Union Panthers. And as I said, just for the scoring part of it, essentially you have Albany State, since they're in the race at the end. I went ahead and dropped the rankings all the way down. They beat number 11 Golden Rams at Savannah State Tigers 4-4, 3-3. It is a race. You see any of these teams losing this week? Charles, any of them losing this week is the first question. Yes, no?
No.
Which one team's second follow-up question, which team would you say it had the biggest probability of potentially losing?
I think Albany State going to Savannah State. I think that at least raises my eyebrow. Yeah.
Wilton, any of those teams have a chance of losing?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Agree with Charles in terms of the toughest one potentially being Savannah State, Albany State? Or are you going in a different direction?
No, I was going to choose that just kind of based off Albany State schedule and how things are shaking up, and then the win that Savannah State has gotten. So I would definitely say that game too.
80 Drew, I know you love chaos, but any of those 4 teams, any of them going to lose?
Honestly, no. Did you mention Sean Livingstone in your 4?
No, because they weren't really ranked 7, so I was just going with those teams.
I mean, just like last week, we didn't have too many sexy matchups last week when it came to the mid-major level, at least in the SIAC. This week, CIAA doesn't have any sexy matchups. You could, you've got a couple of cute matchups in the SIAC, but they're not super sexy.
I like that cute, not superstar status.
They're not prime time.
Good stuff. Let's take our last break. We're going to come back in what a lot of folks are waiting for. The big matchup in the MEAC is actually a Thursday night game. We're going to give these gentlemen a chance to talk a little early about that. We'll take a really deep dive on Thursday, if you would. But we're going to touch on it tonight and see if there's any other games that these guys want to talk about. But we'll spend some time on that matchup. Yeah, this was the one that everybody, AD Drew, you can call this one the sexy matchup, if you would. We'll be right back after the break and talk about that.
That's a superstar.
We'll be right back after this break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody.
Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have none other than Charles Bishop, A.D. Drew, and Wilton Jackson II. With that being said, this is the second matchup. Big sexy, as some people said up there. Fourth matchup, if you would. Number one, North Carolina Central Eagles, 6-2, 2-0. South Carolina State Bulldogs, the rebuilt Bulldogs that are back in action, 5-2. As you see, both are undefeated in the conference race. Everybody kind of looked at this potential matchup early in the season, but I'm not sure if they looked at it in terms of this big. Well, based on what the other teams have done, in terms of what they've done all season, this matchup becomes even bigger than you think. Halloween, if you would, be in the house. A lot of scary things happen on Halloween. Some people would say some weird things happen on Halloween. Eagles have had their troubles in Orangeburg. A lot of teams have their troubles in Orangeburg, good or not. I'm fascinated to see what these gentlemen have to say about this matchup. I'm not sure how much I can flex and put it out there more than this. Wilton Jackson the second. I'm gonna go to you first and give you the opportunity to kind of shine. What do you think in this MEAC matchup?
So when I look at this matchup in the beginning of the season, because we didn't necessarily know what North Carolina Central was going to look like, obviously without Davis Richard, and we didn't know what South Carolina State was going to look like in Chennis Berry's first year. But I've said on this show and on several shows that I was high on Chennis Berry. Now I got to stand on that, and I'm standing on that this week. I think I think they're going to be North Carolina Central. I do. I think it's going to be a close game. I think that the continuity because both teams have continuity on the offensive line, but I think that continuity with South Carolina State's offensive line and what Eric Phoenix has been able to do, I'm not sold on Central's defense in terms of being able to slow him down completely enough to where they can't win the game. I think that if they can maintain balance, if South Carolina State can maintain balance and running the ball, and Phoenix still does what he does, I think they can get this win. I really do. It'll shock a lot of people. I know Josh somewhere out there, like, I know he didn't just say that they gonna do. I know he's mad somewhere. I know he's gonna look at this and be like, did he really just say that? But I got it. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say South Carolina State is gonna get this win. I do think it's gonna be an extremely close game, though.
Good call. Good, fascinating. 80 Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of this matchup? Number 1 versus number 4. Number 1 goes on the road in conference play.
I'm going to pull out my inner Mike Washington and pull out the data points. And speaking of Mike Washington, Mike, you can't do homecoming like them that do church and go twice a year to church. You know, Christmas and Easter. Mike, you should come to the show more than Christmas and Easter, my brother. More than homecoming and the classic. I need you to come back to the show more than twice a year, my brother. But anyway, pulling out Mike Washington, looking at some data points, Dr. Cavil. Number 1 offense, North Carolina Central. Number 3 defense, South Carolina State. Number 2 offense, South Carolina State. Number 2 defense, North Carolina Central. Scoring offense, number 1, South Carolina State. Number 2 scoring defense, North Carolina Central. Number 2 scoring offense, North Carolina Central. Number 2 scoring defense, South Carolina State. I'm not done, y'all. Number 1 rushing offense, North Carolina Central. Number 1 rushing defense, South Carolina State. Let's keep going. Number 1 passing offense, South Carolina State. Number 2 passing defense, North Carolina Central. So I mean, I can keep going on and on. I told you this was strength on strength. Normally, you get these type of games where, you got a team with a good passing game against a team that has a bad pass defense. So you should get some type of depth where you can go and lean your pick. But when you look at the numbers, you look at the column on the left, you see the one team. You look at the column on the right, you see the other team's defense. So this is how sexy this matchup is. She's prime time. You taking her to the movies at 5:00 in the afternoon. You're not going to the midday matinee. You're not going and catching the midnight show. You want everybody to see this date. That's what this matchup is. And we go and sit down in the restaurant with the valet parking and the seats in the front. Sexy.
Good stuff. So we're gonna hold off on 80 Drew and wait till we get closer to the matchup to get his pick. With that being said, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of this matchup? I think people set up the dinner table for you to bring it home.
Well, I have to agree with AD. I mean, this the Whitley Gilbert game. She pretty and fine. I mean, this the one you want. I mean, it is strength on strength, and I'm gonna take the non-scientific approach. Whoever gives me the better pregame speech, because both of them,
they both gonna be good.
But I gotta lean towards Chennis because I've seen Chennis's pregame speech. I've been there for Chennis's pregame speech. I can imagine what the halftime speech is. Chennis got to be one of the top orators when it comes to just firing you up without the 4-letter words.
Yeah, my mama wanted to run through a wall. I sent her the videotape of Chennis this past week. Like, where'd they get him from? I said, yeah, he real now.
Yeah.
You know, I think it comes down to whether South Carolina State can stop Jamari Taylor. I really do believe in North Carolina Central's running game, and you know, there isn't a weakness to me. Well, when you're talking to either one, but if I'm going to pin something somewhere, I always love a good running game, and I love a good feature back. And I think North Carolina Central has one of the best in HBCU football. And I mean, the lights are brightest. Thursday night, everybody will be watching. Even in the midst of my homecoming festivities, I will make sure I get an opportunity to catch this game. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to take North Carolina Central on the road. But I tell you what, if South Carolina State wins, Chennis needs to set out a hop. I need to see that. I need to see that out of the head coach. I need to see that. I need to see him set out a hop.
Oh, might just do it if they win.
Yeah, right.
Boy, he not right for that one. He not right for that. Go ahead.
That's a question related to this game.
Mm-hmm.
The loser of this game get an FCS playoff spot based on this game, assuming that they win out the rest of the season. Is this enough to get them in?
I think for sure Central, South Carolina State, a little tougher, but if they win out, they're gonna have a hell of an argument. Hell of an argument. They'll be 8-3. Moving out, winning.
Quality lost to FAMU.
Yeah, winning 3 in a row. Quality lost to FAMU.
It'll be a quality loss to Central if they
have a couple of quality FCS wins.
Yes.
They do have the D2 win on there. And maybe they may have a better argument to Central now. You think about it, because Central has the
Lynchburg on there.
Lynchburg on the schedule.
Yeah.
Now I think they have 2 FCS wins as well. So it'll be interesting. You're right that they're going to be interested. I think Central. The reason I lean Central because they're higher in the poll, which means in most people's eyes they're a little higher in the rankings. No, they don't use the poll for the analysis, but it's still a good judge in terms of where people are in terms of the index.
Is it too soon to say this game is for the Celebration Bowl?
No. That was my next one. You're on it, Charles. Yeah. I think this is for the Celebration Bowl, particular when you talk about the other teams. Norfolk State, they've already had the loss to the Eagles. Obviously, they have a chance if the win is by the Bulldogs, so you still got that matchup there. But it's hard for me to believe that Norfolk State is not going to end up with another loss. Howard, the way they're playing right now, struggling at quarterback, can they find a way and run it without getting at least one more loss in conference play? And in Delaware State, they're certainly struggling. And so you start to run out of teams. Morgan State, while they have a championship-level defense, I would argue, offense, there's no way you can believe that they're going to run off 4 games with that offense. Yeah. Wilton?
No, I just wanted to pose a point to Charles. You were saying about the South Carolina State, North Carolina Central game and South Carolina State being able to stop Jamari Taylor. You know, South Carolina State has 2 running backs too, and
they do.
They do hard in Casey Adams. And I'm wondering, if you had to choose which one would have the most dominant production on the field, which one would you choose?
And that's where I just started leaning towards Jamari Taylor. And that was the difference. Like you mentioned, 2 quality backs. But if I'm stacking them, I got to go with Taylor. Yeah.
I've seen Mark carry the mail, and he can carry a truckload.
Yeah, he is. Oh, for sure.
Man, y'all need to get drunk breaking this down. We're going to get you out of here after this. We're not going to do analysis on the game, but we're going to tease it. We'll do more on Thursday. But since you brought up playoffs, I thought it was important to look at this UT Martin Skyhawks that sit at 5-3, 3-1. At number 3, Tennessee State Tigers, 6-2, 3-1. I think this is important, obviously, for the conference race to stay in that. Also, I think in terms of playoffs, they need this game such that they can make that Southeast Missouri game to win the conference. And even if you roll out all the way to that game and you ultimately can lose that game close, then you're sitting at, 8-3 yourself, finishing that 5-1 in conference play, 2 or whatever. do they have a chance to say that they should be in the playoffs, even if they don't win the conference, with the long loss coming at the end of the season, the Sumo? Charles?
I mean, this is that sort of game that Tennessee State has to prove it to me. So that I know that they are for real. I think they have a very good team. I expect them to get the win because I think they are going to be in that conversation. They are a different looking ball club this season.
Particularly at home. Wilton?
Yeah.
I think Tennessee State will get the win. Just kind of seeing who they've played this season, it just feels like this team is a little bit different. I've seen some of the growth in Draylon Ellis at quarterback, some of the continuity they've had on the offensive line, even defense. I mean, defense wasn't necessarily bad last year. It was really more so their offense being consistent. And so I think this year they've had that continuity and that consistency. And I think this is the year that Coach George and what the program is doing, I think they get over the hump. They get this win.
AD Drew?
Tennessee State gets in for one factor. One of only 2 HBCUs to play a all FCS schedule so that you can get a proper evaluation of them. No Division IIs, no FBSs on the schedule this year. That's going to help them in this case if what you said, Dr. Cavil, plays out. That should be enough for them to get into the playoffs. The committee doesn't have to worry about dropping games and statistics in certain games. They can give them a full evaluation based on those 11 games that they have.
Great point. Great point. That was for you, Sneaker Shop Talk, in terms of getting a little Tennessee State talk in there. That'll do it for us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I'm picking Tennessee State. I see you. If you're refusing to come to the swag. I love it. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As I said, again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Standard Time. Obviously, we'll be back on Thursday. I'll be traveling, heading this time to Chicago, the Windy City. See if I can get some deep dish pizza or something. We'll let you know what that looks like. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, DrKenyattacavil. That's Twitter because I can, Facebook, Instagram, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter. Facebook and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Wilton?
Lecture.
AD?
Yes, miss.
Great show.